Diana Marshall followed the same ritual every night. When her shift ended, the tip jar opened, money counted. Then Diana disappeared into the midnight darkness. The other servers wondered, what does Diana do with that money? Some thought she gambled, some thought she had debts. But nobody knew the truth. Until that Tuesday night, when wealthy businessman Vincent Crawford walked into the diner. The man wore an expensive suit but looked down on Diana, treating her as if she were invisible. She took his order, served his table, and he left without even leaving a tip. But then something happened. Vincent waited in the parking lot and saw Diana. The woman had plastic bags in her hands, food packages, and supplies bought with her tip money, walking into the dark streets. Vincent followed out of curiosity. Diana entered 3 different houses. In each one, hungry children, families with cut electricity, elderly neighbors. That night Vincent understood something. Diana Marshall wasn't just a waitress. What happened next, nobody could believe. Diana was shocked, and she changed the lives of hundreds of people in need. Diana Marshall's alarm went off at 4:30 p.m. every afternoon. Most people were finishing their workday. Diana's was just beginning. She had exactly 45 minutes to get her 7-year-old son Elijah fed, homework checked, and settled with Mrs. Chun next door before her shift started at Stella's Diner. Stella's was a 24-hour establishment on the south side of Atlanta, the kind of place where truckers stopped for coffee at 3 a.m. and night shift workers grabbed breakfast before heading home at dawn. The fluorescent lights never dimmed, the coffee pot never stopped brewing, and the smell of bacon and hash browns was permanent in the air. Diana had worked there for 4 years, ever since Elijah's father left, and she'd needed steady income with flexible hours. The night shift paid slightly more, and it allowed her to be home when Elijah went to school in the mornings. She'd sleep from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. while he was at school, wake up to pick him up, spend the afternoon with him, then head to work. It wasn't the life she'd planned. Diana had been 2 semesters away from her nursing degree when she got pregnant. She'd intended to finish after Elijah was born, but childcare costs and medical bills had made that impossible. The nursing degree sat unfinished, and Diana wore a waitress uniform instead of scrubs. But she was good at her job. She remembered regular customers' orders, refilled coffee before cups were empty, and had a warm smile even during the hardest shifts. Tips were decent. On a good night, she could make $60 to $80, and every single dollar went to the neighborhood. It had started small, almost accidentally. 6 months ago, Diana had noticed Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman 3 doors down, sitting on her porch in the dark. The power company had cut her electricity because she couldn't pay the $180 bill on her fixed income. Diana had gone home that night with $47 in tips. She'd stood in her kitchen, looking at the money, thinking about Elijah's school shoes that needed replacing. Then she'd thought about Mrs. Henderson sitting in the dark, alone, probably scared. She'd walked to Mrs. Henderson's house and handed her the money. For your electric bill. Don't argue. Mrs. Henderson had cried. Baby, you can't afford this. Neither can you. And you shouldn't sit in the dark. Word spread quickly in their neighborhood, Park Manor, a struggling community where most families lived paycheck to paycheck. People started coming to Diana, not asking directly, but she'd hear things. Mr. Torres needed insulin, but had to choose between medicine and groceries. The family next door had 3 kids, and the father had been laid off. Elderly Mr. Jackson's heater broke in January. Diana couldn't fix everything, but she could help a little. Every night, she'd count her tips, buy food from Stella's kitchen, paying for it herself at employee discount, and make quiet rounds through the neighborhood. The other servers at Stella's noticed. Carmen, who worked the evening shift, had asked once, Girl, where does all your tip money go? You never seem to have any. Diana had shrugged. Bills. You know how it is. Carmen hadn't believed her, but she'd stopped asking. What Diana didn't know was that her quiet generosity had become neighborhood legend. People called her the Angel or Our Diana, someone who showed up when families were at their lowest, never judging, never expecting recognition. And she certainly didn't know that on that particular Tuesday night, someone was about to witness exactly what she did with those tips. Vincent Crawford was having the worst week of his professional life. The real estate development deal he'd spent 18 months negotiating had fallen through. His investors were threatening to pull out of his company, and his wife had served him with divorce papers. He'd been driving aimlessly around Atlanta when hunger hit. At 11:30 p.m., he'd pulled into the parking lot of Stella's Diner, a place he'd never normally visit. Vincent Crawford ate at restaurants with wine lists and valet parking, not fluorescent-lit diners with plastic menus. But tonight he didn't care. He just needed food and silence. He walked in, and a black waitress in her early 30s approached with a menu. She had tired eyes, but a genuine smile. "Evening, sir. Sit anywhere you'd like." Vincent chose a corner booth and barely looked at her. "Coffee. Black. And bring me a menu." "Of course." She walked away without the obsequious hovering he was used to from servers at expensive restaurants. When she returned with coffee, Vincent ordered without looking up from his phone. "Burger. Medium rare. Fries. That's it. Any vegetables? We have a nice side salad." "I said that's it." "All right then." She wrote it down and walked away. Vincent barely registered her existence. To him, service staff were functionaries. They brought food. He paid. Transaction complete. He especially didn't think much about black service workers. If pressed, he'd say he wasn't racist. He just didn't think about them at all. His burger arrived 15 minutes later. It was actually good, better than he'd expected from a place like this. The waitress, her name tag said Diana, refilled his coffee without being asked and left him alone. When Vincent finished, he left exact change on the table. No tip. In his mind, adequate service didn't deserve extra compensation. That's what their wages were for. He walked out without a word. But then his phone died, and he realized he needed to charge it before driving home. His car had a charger, so he pulled around to the parking lot's far corner where he could see the diner's back entrance. That's when he saw Diana. She emerged from the employee exit at 12:15 a.m., still in her uniform. She was carrying several plastic bags. Vincent could see styrofoam containers inside. She walked quickly, purposefully, into the neighborhood behind the diner. Vincent's first thought was that she was stealing food. His second thought was curiosity. Why would someone risk their job over a few meals? Without entirely meaning to, he followed her. He kept his car lights off, driving slowly, watching as Diana walked 3 blocks into a residential area that clearly hadn't seen prosperity in decades. She stopped at a small house with peeling paint. Knocked. An elderly black woman answered, and Vincent could see her face light up. Diana handed her bags, talked for a moment, then moved on. Second house. This time a young mother with 3 small children. Vincent watched as the kids practically tackled Diana with hugs. She laughed, handed over food, ruffled their hair. Third house. An elderly man answered, moving slowly with a walker. Diana gave him medication bottles. Vincent recognized the pharmacy bag. Then Diana walked back toward the diner, passing close to where Vincent's car was parked in shadows. She paused, turned, and looked directly at his car. For a long moment, they stared at each other through the windshield. Then Diana approached and tapped on his window. Vincent rolled it down, feeling oddly caught. "You want to know what I'm doing?" Diana asked. Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. Yes, actually." "Get out of your car. I'll show you." Vincent hesitated, then did as she asked. Diana studied him in the streetlight. "You're the man who didn't tip tonight. The one who treated me like furniture." Vincent felt heat rise in his face. "I don't. It's fine. I'm used to it. But since you followed me like some kind of detective, you might as well understand what you didn't pay for." She started walking, and Vincent followed. "Mrs. Henderson," Diana said, gesturing to the first house. 78 years old, lives on $900 a month Social Security. I pay her electric bill when she can't, which is most months. Second house. The Johnsons. Father got laid off 6 weeks ago. 3 kids. I bring them groceries when I can. Third house. Mr. Torres. Diabetic. His insulin costs $340 a month. Medicare doesn't cover all of it. I help when he's short. Vincent stared at her. "You do this with your tip money? What else am I going to do with it? Let them suffer?" Mrs. Henderson is 78 years old. She shouldn't sit in the dark because our society decided electricity is a luxury. But you can't be making enough in tips, too. I'm not. I make about $60 to $80 on a good night. It's never enough. There are maybe 30 families in this neighborhood who need help. I can only help 3 or 4 at a time. Diana's voice cracked slightly. I have to choose who eats and who doesn't. You know what that feels like. Vincent didn't know what to say. This woman, this waitress he'd treated as invisible, was doing more genuine good than most charity boards he'd sat on. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Diana looked at him directly. Because you followed me. Because you're clearly someone with money and resources. And because maybe, just maybe, you'll think twice before treating your next server like they don't exist. She turned to walk away. Wait, Vincent said. What's your name? You didn't ask when I served you dinner. Why ask now? Because I want to help. Diana laughed bitterly. Help? You couldn't even leave a $5 tip. I know. And I'm sorry for that. But I'm serious. I want to help. Diana studied him skeptically. People always say that. Then they forget by morning. Vincent pulled out his wallet and handed her a business card. Vincent Crawford. Crawford Development Group. Call me tomorrow. If you're serious about helping this neighborhood, I have resources. Diana took the card, looked at it, then looked at him. Why would you help? Because tonight I saw someone doing more with $60 than I've done with $6 million. Diana didn't call the next day, or the day after. But on Friday, Vincent's secretary buzzed him. Sir, there's a Diana Marshall here to see you. She says you gave her your card. Vincent stood immediately. Send her in. Diana walked into his downtown office looking uncomfortable in the sleek, expensive space. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, clearly her day off. I almost didn't come, she said. Figured you'd forgotten or weren't serious. I was serious. Sit down. They talked for 2 hours. Diana explained the neighborhood's needs. Families struggling with food insecurity, elderly residents unable to afford utilities, children without school supplies, teenagers who needed job training. Vincent listened to all of it, taking notes. Then he made a proposal. I want to start a foundation. Community-focused, neighborhood-specific. You'd run it. Diana blinked. I'm a waitress. I don't run foundations. You've been running an unofficial foundation for 6 months. You know exactly where help is needed and how to deliver it with dignity. That's more valuable than a business degree. I have a son. I need to work. This would be full-time work. Salary of $65,000 to start, with benefits. You'd coordinate community outreach, work with local families, distribute resources. Diana stared at him. $65,000 was more than double what she made at Stella's. Why are you doing this? Vincent leaned back in his chair. Honestly, because I've spent 20 years making money and feeling empty. I watch you help people with spare change and realize I've never done anything that mattered. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's a midlife crisis. But I want to do something real. And if I say no, then I'll find someone else. But they won't care about Park Manor the way you do. Diana thought about Elijah. About Mrs. Henderson sitting in the dark. About choosing which families ate each night. If I do this, I have conditions. The foundation serves Park Manor first. Not as a tax write-off, as a real community partner. And residents have input on how money gets spent. Vincent smiled. Deal. 3 months later, the Crawford-Marshall Community Foundation opened a small office in Park Manor. Diana quit Stella's, though she still visited regularly. Her former coworkers were stunned when they learned what she'd been doing with her tips. The foundation started small, food assistance, utility relief, school supplies. But word spread. Local businesses donated. Other wealthy donors joined Vincent. Within 6 months, they were serving 200 families. Diana hired community members to run programs. Mrs. Henderson coordinated senior services. Mr. Johnson, who'd found a new job, led fathers' support groups. Teenagers worked in the foundation office learning job skills. Vincent was more involved than Diana expected. He didn't just write checks. He showed up. He helped serve meals, talked with residents, listened to what people needed. One evening, they were closing the office when Vincent said, I owe you an apology. For what? That first night. Treating you like you were invisible. I did that for years, looked right through service workers, especially black servers. Like you didn't exist outside bringing my food. Diana nodded. I know. I could tell. How? It's the eyes. When someone sees you as a person, their eyes focus on your face. When they see you as a servant, their eyes slide past you. Yours slid past me. Vincent felt ashamed. I'm sorry. You're doing better now? That's what matters. A year after the foundation started, they'd expanded to 3 neighborhoods. Diana had hired a staff of 8, all community members. They'd helped over 500 families, kept 127 elderly residents in their homes, and provided job training to 83 teenagers. Diana's son Elijah had a college fund now. Mrs. Henderson's power had never been cut again. The Johnsons were stable. Mr. Torres never missed insulin. At the foundation's one-year celebration, held in Park Manor's community center, Diana stood at a microphone looking at the crowd of 300-plus people. A year ago, I was a waitress trying to help 3 families at a time with tip money. I thought that was all I could do. Then someone saw what I was doing and asked a simple question. What if you had more resources? She looked at Vincent, who sat in the audience looking uncomfortable with the attention. Mr. Crawford taught me something. It's not about how much money you have. It's about what you do with what you've got. I had $60 and fed 3 families. He had millions and felt empty. Together, we built something real. The crowd applauded. Diana continued. But I want to be clear about something. This foundation exists because a community took care of each other first. Before there was a foundation, there were neighbors helping neighbors. Mrs. Henderson checking on Mr. Torres. The Johnsons sharing what little they had. That's the Real Foundation. After the event, as people were leaving, a young black woman approached Diana. She wore a Stella's diner uniform. Miss Diana? I'm Keisha. I work at Stella's now, your old shift. Carmen told me what you used to do with your tips. Diana smiled. Don't let Carmen tell all my secrets. I just wanted to say, I started doing something similar. Not as much as you did. But there's this family on my route home. She trailed off. Diana hugged her. That's exactly right. You don't need a foundation to help people. You just need to care. As Keisha left, Vincent approached. You know what's going to happen, right? More people are going to start doing what you did. Small acts multiplied. Good. That's the whole point. 2 years later, the Crawford-Marshall Foundation was operating in 12 Atlanta neighborhoods. Diana had become a voice in city council meetings about poverty issues. Vincent had shifted his entire business model toward community-focused development. But Diana's proudest moment came on a random Tuesday evening. She was driving through Park Manor when she saw a young man she didn't recognize carrying food bags into Mrs. Henderson's house. She stopped her car and called out, "Excuse me." The young man turned. "Yes, ma'am. I'm Diana Marshall. I run the Community Foundation. Can I ask what you're doing?" He smiled. "I work at the grocery store on Morrison Street. We were going to throw out some bread and produce that's still good. Seemed wrong to waste it when Mrs. Henderson and folks could use it. I've been bringing by what I can, couple times a week." Diana felt tears prick her eyes. "What's your name?" "Jerome." "Jerome, you're doing something beautiful. Keep it up." As she drove home, Diana thought about that night 2 years ago when Vincent Crawford had followed her through the neighborhood. How one encounter had spiraled into something neither of them expected. She pulled into her driveway, a house the foundation had helped her buy, so she and Elijah had stability, and sat for a moment. Her phone rang. It was Vincent. "You busy? I've got someone who wants to meet you. Another business owner who saw what we're doing. She wants to start something similar in her neighborhood." Diana smiled. "Send me the address." Because this was how change happened. Not through one person doing something extraordinary, but through ordinary people deciding that their neighbors' struggle mattered more than their comfort. Diana Marshall had started with $60 in tip money and a heart that couldn't ignore suffering. 2 years later, hundreds of families had food, shelter, and hope. And somewhere in Atlanta, a young grocery store worker named Jerome was carrying food to an elderly neighbor, inspired by a story he'd heard about a waitress who'd changed her neighborhood one dinner at a time. The circle continued. The work continued. And Diana Marshall, former waitress, current foundation director, eternal neighbor, continued showing up, night after night, proving that the most powerful force in the world wasn't money or status. It was deciding that someone else's need mattered enough to act.